Alrighty, so here we are ready to get started on my little experiment project to dye some yarn for my Musselburgh hat. I'm just using some Bear Stroll fingering weight yarn. Ordered it from Knit Picks a while back. I'm going to be putting that onto my, we call it a table yarn swift. I've also heard it referred to as an Amish swift, and then I'm going to put it onto my another one I got from Knit Picks. Had this for several years. So let's get the swift set up, get the yarn on there, and cake it up so it's ready to go. Now, a video I saw a little while back showed, it was with Kim Knits, and she was doing a similar type of thing, and well, pretty much the same type, except for the Musselburgh hat part. She was dyeing a cake of yarn, and she would cake it up twice so that it was nice and fluffy and it wasn't wound up really tightly. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'll show you that in just a minute. Alrighty, so we have the yarn is on the swift now. I'm going to snip the little threads that are holding it. So here's the end. I always like to scoot it way out of my way and then get it, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Hi. Anyway, let me check if I'm even in frame. Not at all. So I'm just going to get this lined up here. And I'm just going to try to, this is probably going to be super seasicky because I've got a wobbly old table. So I'm just going to take it from my swift onto the ball winder. I'll do it up one time and then I'll come back and show you what I'll do for the second time winding it. So right now this is wound quite tightly, so I'm afraid that when, and as Kim Knits pointed out, when you go to dye this and put it into the water, it's really tightly packed, so I'm afraid that it's just going to, the colors in the dye aren't going to kind of absorb easily all the way into the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in this fancy, it's just a it's an old candy dish, a glass candy dish that I have, and I'm going to take the yarn out and I'm going to run it through a second time, and then this way it should come through and do up a little bit looser. So we shall see. But you can see how much bigger and fluffier this cake of yarn is. Anywho, so I'm going to be using a bunch of different Jacquard acid dyes, and I want to keep it in the blue and green family, and these different blues and greens are going to strike the dye or strike the yarn at different rates, so I'm hoping that that's going to kind of give us that effect where the yarn, the color changes through the yarn when it's dyeing. So I'm going to use teal, emerald, turquoise, gunmetal. Now this is a grayish blue kind of color. brilliant blue, and sky blue. So it's just going to be a combination of different blue inks, or blue inks. I keep calling them ink today. A bunch of different blue dyes. I have a little scale that I'm going to use. I'm just going to put the dye on top of the piece of paper, and I'm going to weigh out roughly, thinking between 1 and 2 grams of powder total to dye one skein, that 100 gram skein of yarn. I'm going to put it into a little sour cream container that I only use for dyeing, and I'm going to be scooping out the dye using just a wooden skewer. Once I get started and I open up the dye containers, I'm not going to be talking because I'm going to be wearing a mask. If you're using any of these acid dyes, the powders, you really ought to be wearing a mask while you're doing it so that you're not inhaling the powder. It's not good for you. Once it's mixed with water, you're fine, but when it's just the dry powder on the loose, not fine. So there's that. So I'm going to get started measuring this out, so I'm going to stop talking now. Can we even see? Shoot, I don't think, can you see that? Nah, nuts, I don't think that can even be seen. You might just have to trust me. Okay, mask is going on. Alrighty, so I have my mask is off now, so we can talk again. Just going to take a little piece of paper towel. Okay, that's a dark color. That's a gorgeous bluey green. So I have here a pot of warm water that I'm going to add. Oh, that's gorgeous. To heat up, and I need to add some vinegar, so I'm going to put in about a quarter cup, half a cup of vinegar. I will probably add more a little bit later, but for now that'll be a goodly amount. So let's get the yarn. So it's not quite, it's getting pretty warm. I've got the water set to a level that is just a little bit deeper than the amount or the thickness of the yarn. So the yarn's about that tall, the water's a little bit deeper than that tall. So this is all very technical. This is all, I'm just playing around with this. I do not profess to be a professional at this whatsoever. You can see the upper side of my fan. I just want to let this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the water in, or put this skein of yarn in, and just let it slowly absorb and slowly sink into the water. It's going, the ball of, or the yarn is going in dry. So, and if this turns out to be a complete disaster, I'll make another one. So this is pretty warm, so I'm going to, ooh, she's sinking in pretty quick actually. Sinking in quicker than I thought she would. You can see the lighter greenish in the middle. And you can just kind of see the water or the color kind of wicking in there. And the skein is getting It's getting a little bit of color coming through. The darkest colors are going to be on the outside and the lighter colors inside. But you can already see there's a little bit of darker blue. Oh, it was almost starting to boil. I'm going to turn this down. Yeah, I'm turning that all the way down to low setting. It's not completely actually, I think I might be happy if the top of that just stays like that. I'm kind of hoping that the color doesn't just go screaming through the yarn really fast and it's the same color all the way down. I won't be happy with that, but we shall see. So I'm going to leave this sit here, do its thing. Maybe I didn't have quite enough water in there, but that might be okay because that might leave some of it that won't get as much of the dye attached to it. We shall see, but it looks like we still have a lot of color left in the water. So I'll probably come back. I'm going to let it do its thing for about 20 minutes and we'll come back. There is still a ton of ink in here. Why do I keep calling it ink? Anyway, I don't think it's going to absorb anymore. So I am going to grab my tongs and just pop it in the bowl and just let it sit there and do its thing. Let it cool off. Alrighty, so here we are about 24 hours later. Let's take a look at the yarn. It's still quite damp. Look at the fun speckly effect where the yarn crosses over. So that's what the top of the cake looks like. And you can kind of see how the blue has come through. It's still quite damp in there. And that's what the bottom looks like. So this is where it was sitting on the bottom of the pot. So what I'm going to do, and this is the edge of the bottom, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the yarn Swift, my Swift set up. I'm going to leave this in the bowl. I'm going to very gently and very loosely get it back on the Swift to get it into a hank form. And then from there, I'm going to lay it out on my clothes rack to finish drying. So now this has been 24 hours since we dyed this. So I dyed it on Monday afternoon. It's Tuesday afternoon now, and I'll come back and I'll probably finish once it's all dried. I'll be able to show it to you again probably on Thursday, unless it's dried tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning. Then I might get it filmed and posted on Thursday or Wednesday, probably Thursday. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's go get the Swift set up. Alrighty, oops, that's not good. So this is going to be probably a slow process because I just want to do this quite slowly. I don't want this to be done up tightly. I'm going to turn it this way for now. This is going to take a while. Let's just look at all those little speckles on there from the resist where the yarn is crisscrossing. That just looks so cool. It's going to make a really interesting mottled effect on the knitting. Alrighty, so it's all wound up on here. That took forever, but that's okay. You can see how it's variegated through, but if you look at the beginning, or if you look at this side, look at how pretty that is. I am excited for how this is going to look once it's all done up. Anywho, so I'm going to lay this on my drying rack and I'll see what it looks like, and I'll get it a little bit more done with it tomorrow. Alrighty. So there we have it. It's almost dry. Still has a little ways to go. I'm just going to let it sit here and dry for the rest of the day. We're at Wednesday morning now, so it's been out here drying some more for the last 12 or so hours. I love the colors. I love the variation. This is going to make a gorgeous hat. And I'm excited to get started with it. Alrighty, so I'll show it to you. Sorry, my tea, if you hear that gurgling, I've got a cup of tea brewing in the background. Anywho, so we'll get started with, I'll talk more about this when I do my regular video on Saturday. Alrighty, see you then.